Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this session, we're going to do something a little bit different. We are going to take a look at this article, and this article, of course, is based off of what they've found in Activision Blizzard's most recent financials, their quarter one financials, and then we get their nice headline of almost 29% of their overall active player base is gone in 3 years. We'll read further into the article and see, hey, are we talking about Overwatch or are we talking about Blizzard? I suspect we're talking about Blizzard in general there, or Blizzard Activision in general there, but we will take a look. So, um, the big takeaways here is this is the author just sort of summarizing, hey, they've had a bit of a roller coaster, some things that have not been great in the last couple of years between the Blitzchung boycotts, layoffs, some bad quarters. Really, the only thing in recent years that has been sort of a hey, this is great uptick for Overwatch or for Blizzard was the classic release. So that's not too wild. We see that they had 5 straight quarters where the revenue was dropping, though it was slight, close to flat. And then we see that as things happened, COVID lockdowns, etc., it looks like they in quarter four turned it around, had revenues up 17%. So that's good. I mean, revenues aren't profits, but that's good that they potentially got that turned around. That could be a good sign that they're getting a grasp on things, could be good leading up to Overwatch 2, which we would all hope to be successful. Uh, of course, they did in the last quarter have quite a bit when it comes to negative press surrounding, hey, they did a bunch more layoffs, as well as some bonuses there. That's not amazing. But hey, as we keep going here, Q1 results, significant increase, 2.2 billion. Yeah, that's definitely going to be a big deal. And then let's get our quote. For the quarter ended March 31st, 2021, Activision Blizzard's net revenues presented in accordance with GAAP were 2.28 billion as compared with 1.79 billion for the first quarter of 2020. GAAP net revenues from digital channels were 2.01 billion. Operating margin was 35%. Earnings per diluted share were 79 cents, 65 for the first quarter of 2020 for comparison. So 79 versus 65. Yeah, that's a pretty nice jump there. On a non GAAP basis, Activision Blizzard's operating margin was 43%. Okay, so that tells us a little more margin versus revenue. Earnings per diluted share were 98 as compared with 76 for the first quarter of 2020. Operating cash flow was 844 million. Maybe. First quarter of 2020, and the trailing 12-month period 2.95 billion. Okay, so yes, obviously this quarter does look quite a bit better. Now, some of that is going to happen when you cut costs by getting rid of a bunch of employees, which isn't a very nice PR move, but is going to certainly cut some of your costs there, etc. So the machine is perhaps running a little bit better in terms of the profits that it's netting out there, at least for this quarter. But long term, how have things been going? As we saw the scary headline to start here of 29% of its overall active player base is drained off in the last 3 years. So are some of these decisions boosting revenue? Is that a short term or a long term thing, though? We shall perhaps see what this author thinks. What portion of Activision's execs do I think play video games? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know enough about Activision specific's history. Like, obviously, we know Blizzard's history well enough to know that, yeah, they almost certainly, at least at some point, were like, yes, we play video games, we care, etc. And you don't fully leave that behind. And it also depends how you want to define what is playing video games. Is playing video games, hey, you do 20 hours a week of video games on consoles or PC? Is it you do 5 hours a week? Is it you do 5 hours a month? Is it you play a video game twice a year? Is it you play some Diablo Immortal on your cell phone? Like, how do you want to define play video games? Because that's going to be important for answering that question. But we know on the Blizzard side that most of what came up through there, though not much of that is represented in the executives anymore, and those that are perhaps have adopted more of the Activision culture. They were certainly big video game players. I mean, we've had situations in the past where we know that Bastion got his ironclad ridiculousness removed because a dev had gone home and played and been like, "Oh my god, this is crazy," which was like, okay, that's a weird way for QA to happen. But we know we had very high-ranking people. I'm not talking the average dev. I believe it was Jeff, and even though Jeff carries a director title, he was at the time actually much higher in their structure. Director is just the title that they have for games. So yeah, if we get into the like true executives, how many of them play video games? I don't know. Some of that stuff is it's a job, and once you get to that level, it's a job, and you start getting poached, not promoted from within, but poached from other stuff. So you go to Activision because you came over from the movie industry, or you go over to Activision because you came over from the sports industry. You go to Activision because you came over from XYZ. That said, most American adults play video games at this point. At least if we are willing to expand our definition of video games to how, some of the things that I just defined it as. So I would expect that there's a fair amount of video game playing. I don't think that many people would define them as gamers, but I would expect that there's a fair amount of, yes, they play some video games. They're not 100% removed from it, but they're not their target audience, if that makes sense. I think there's going to be mostly in a more casual sense where, hey, they've played maybe they play probably a game here and there. No, not during coronavirus. It's in 3 years. Blizzard has lost almost 29% of its overall active player base in 3 years. And this is Blizzard, not necessarily Overwatch. But we're going to keep going here. Okay. As Blizzard specifically, the company talks up WoW Classic and World of Warcraft Shadowlands, which apparently drove revenue growth of 7% year over year. That's correct. World of Warcraft Classic was really at least from my perspective, really from anyone's perspective, the last successful thing that they launched. And remember, that's scary because they originally didn't want to launch it. They told the players, you don't know what you want, you wouldn't like it if we released it, etc. And then it was an out of nowhere massive success for them. So that's concerning that they are so off mark with that. They adjusted pretty quickly and started pouring some resources into it, fixed some of the sharding stuff, did what they needed to with servers, actually kept a decent hand on it in terms of not letting it become too I know there's complaints, but not letting it do too much of a spread out where, hey, there's too many servers because everyone wants to play at the beginning, and then once some of them leave, there's not enough servers, and that accelerates people leaving because there aren't enough people playing on their individual servers. They did a pretty good job of managing their server merges, managing their sharding. There's issues where they had huge mega servers and hadn't properly increased the spawn rate on rare things to gather like Black Lotus, but overall they drove that relatively well. So I'm not going to knock them for that. That's probably been the thing that they've done well. Since then, though, I think we've had the Reforged release, which was awful, and they did have a fairly successful World of Warcraft expansion. Yeah, Shadowlands, it looks like, which did it. Um, Immortal PR wise, which is a disaster, but I don't really know how well it does for overseas. The presser reiterates a global launch for Diablo Immortal this year. So we'll see how that does overseas. That's not looking to make money locally, that's looking to make money overseas, but there's a market for that. There is a market for that grinder thing that can be good for money. If you're getting that infusion in some ways, that's good for the company that is making games that potentially we love. But it's also giving them a signal that if this is what's making us money, maybe we don't want to put our resources into the games that some of us love, and we want to instead put our resources into more stuff like this. On the other hand, some companies have walked that line just fine. Nintendo moved into the mobile space with games like Fire Emblem Heroes, and they were just printing money with Fire Emblem Heroes, but they haven't massively gone into the microtransaction area in other places. Not to say Nintendo doesn't have any microtransactions in any of their games, etc., but they were able to do something like this that just printed money for them without it corrupting their soul, as we'll put it. So there's hope. Yeah, I'm being optimistic, definitely. And Pokemon Go. Yeah, that would be a similar example. Yes, blah. Though Pokemon Go didn't print money to quite the same degree, but yes, Pokemon Go was pretty good for money. Pokemon Go's monetization plan wasn't as good as Heroes. Pokemon Go ended up making more money off of, if memory serves, their ability to like sell to baseball teams, make home plate a Pokestop, etc. And that was kind of a short fad. Like overall, it probably didn't make more money off of that because they kept slowly making money from people buying more Pokeballs, etc. But the monetization pathway there simply wasn't as good. And that was really a flash in the pan one summer that just took over the world and then mostly went away. And the game, as I understand it, has gotten a fair bit better since then, and people will come back, revisit it, etc. But it's nothing like it was there. Um, yeah, but 1.53 years is coronavirus where their numbers sort of skyrocketed. Right, people are playing video games during COVID. Like people are playing video games. There's no question during that you should be getting more player bases. Like you should be getting more people going, "Hey, I'm going to go check out Reforged again. Hey, I'm going to check out Classic again because I'm stuck at home. I didn't think I could invest time in that because I was afraid it would take over my life, but I'm locked at home. I'm going to go check that out again after all." Like you should have pretty good growth during that. Yes. Mobile games are like football for colleges. They print money for other cool things that don't print as much. Fair enough. They can be if you're willing to use it to keep your rep high, to keep your name in the spotlight. And you have to think about it like that. You have to go, hey, we can release mobile games that absolutely print money for us, like maybe Diablo Immortal. We can do that, and it'll print money for us. And we will use that to make other games that are actually good, that will get gamers' seal of approval. And that seal of approval is important for actually making sure people know about and these games are marketed properly. Like we need our strong brand power that has the stamp of approval for this to print money. That's sort of how that works, but you have to recognize that that's the case. You have to recognize that you're investing in your brand by making these good games, even if these games take, bajillions of resources to make and these games take less to make. You still need to do these to make these successful. Well, you don't have to, but if you don't want it to be the worthy, we just happened to luck out that our game was the one that took off. No, you have to make good games elsewhere. Your Pokemon Go playtime is directly correlated on whether or not you're in a relationship. That's fair. That's fair. Does has it been useful in meeting people to start some of those new relationships? Is it like, okay, that's your dating strategy? Is that how that's worked out? It could. It's something that gets people out there. It's a hobby that people can share. Maybe that's a good dating strategy. I don't know. And now people are saying, I just spent 3 months rent on this 3080 card. I need to play something. Yeah, there you go. There you go. I'm really curious about why didn't they make their staff bigger when Overwatch was at its peak? That would make them able to work on the game. Because it wasn't their model. I mean, their model was effectively to go where they came from. Where they came from was more, at least on the Blizzard side, was more we release a big successful game, like we released Warcraft 3, we release a StarCraft 2, um, we release a new WoW expansion. And WoW expansions were the only one of those that really needed serious levels of continued work to be done. With these other things besides WoW, it was mostly on the Blizzard side at least, and when Overwatch came out, Blizzard was still mostly they'd been acquired, but they hadn't been fully absorbed yet. It was clearly mostly them running their own show. They didn't have to keep on big things. That's just a cost. It's like, hey, that's just a cost. It just eats into our profits to have more people on board. Whereas the truth is, Overwatch is the type of game that you have to somewhat constantly balance. You have to somewhat constantly make events for. You have to somewhat constantly figure out new PvE things you can do. You have to constantly go, hey, what can we do here? Like, it is that type of game, both because gamers have moved on in what they expect, the market has moved on in what they expect, and it's just not like a Warcraft 3 or a StarCraft 2 where you can go, okay, we do a lot of resources for this, and then we pull people back. And they weren't really experienced in that realm. It's actually a realm that probably Activision was more experienced in. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't Activision pressures to cut. I suspect there probably were, but hey, but hey. Um, you think you're letting me in on that secret, Blah? Really? You think you're letting me in on that secret? That's yeah. Yeah, most of them don't know how to run themselves. Anytime a company gets this big, you don't really have someone centrally holding it, centrally with enough of a mission. Everyone is a little too, okay, in it for themselves, in it to get their paycheck, in it to get their name attached to a good thing. No one's really interested in making sure all the pieces work together. Yeah, I get it. I do too, Nordstrom. I miss when you could just buy a game and that was it. It didn't change. You didn't pay more money for it afterwards. I agree, Nard. I think you got more in that. On the other hand, there were a couple cases where that went very poorly. We did get a couple games released, more than a couple, that, you'd go buy your cartridge to stick into your Nintendo, and all of the copies of that game that had been made, that had been shipped, simply didn't work. They simply couldn't launch. Or, you get to this and whoops, it turns out if this cutscene ever launches, it doesn't work. And you don't find that out until 30 hours into your game. Like, those are problems that used to happen. And on the plus side, we can fix those now with patches. On the negative side, and there's a lot on the negative side, we're not buying finished games anymore. What we're doing is we're like paying to get access to a casino where we can then spend more money to try to get stuff. Like it's like casinos figured out a long time ago that no, we're happy to get you in the door. In fact, we'll pay for your bus ride to get you in the door. We'll do stuff. We'll work with the airlines to keep flights super low in their cost to get to Vegas, etc. Because once you're here, you're going to spend money in the casinos. Now we're at this place where we're spending $60 on a brand new game to get into the place where they want us to spend more money, which is silly. Now I understand making games has gotten very expensive, and the reason making games has gotten very expensive is there's a arms race with graphics. And as much as people say in a lot of cases, no, I don't care that much about graphics, I don't care that much about graphics, they're wrong. They might say that, they might believe that, but the reality is when you make the graphics better, people buy your game. When you make the graphics better, it makes your marketing material better, and that is one of the best differentiators for getting people to buy your game. So this isn't fully on them, but so be it. I still think there's other better ways you could do it. I've talked about that, but so be it. Where's StarCraft 3 or Warcraft 4? I don't know. And the reason I don't know on those is I think they would like I don't know that they think that that genre has a future. Like RTS is a big part of Blizzard's history, but Blizzard RTS might be over from a more historical standpoint. RTS might be in more of a place where, okay, that used to be big, that used to be a game type that made sense, that used to make sense with the capabilities of gaming machines, but we're sort of past that. That is not the most popular genre. And so you sort of look at it and go, do we really want to StarCraft 3 or Warcraft 4? Like, hey, I'd be cool to play them, but I'm not sure that they're going to view them as they justify the investment for an RTS game. They've sort of done their stamp of this is what an RTS is supposed to look like, and we don't really think there's a ton more to go from here. And if there is, there's might not be enough interest to justify the level of investment that we would expect from a Blizzard game for that level of polish, etc. we might see like there was talk obviously of could we get a world of StarCraft? Like, is that something that would be coming? Or is that something that's going to go the way of StarCraft Ghost? Whoops, never happened, because we're sort of in this place where MMORPGs are also we're past the era for that a bit. So it might be okay. Well, what's the next era? Right now, the era in video games is online competitive games. That's sort of the era of video games right now. Always online, competitive. That's sort of the focus of games. That's where there's the most money to be made outside of some of the mobile stuff. Um, but I don't know what comes next. Is what comes next VR? Is what comes next, some different genre where it's like, okay, now we're going into super heavy story driven games, where we're going into short story driven games where they're like 15 to 20 hours that they sell to us at $70 an episode, and that's the thing, and because that's what people really crave. Or is it going to be we're moving on to um, I'm just pulling out of my hat here. We're moving on to much more heavily team-based game. I don't know. Like we could be going anywhere with it. It could be like we're making a heavy swing back into action games that are single player. Probably not because the monetization isn't there like how they'd want. But you get it. Okay. Um, you have to go, hey, Master Res kind of sucks. Mercy is broken. Oh, that. Okay. And can look like 10-year-old. Yeah, I think I just talked about that, unfortunately, blah. Like, we did just talk about that, and graphics. I've seen the numbers, I've seen the data, I've seen what it does to sales. Unfortunately, whether we like it or not, graphics do really help move games. On the other hand, we did get the classic WoW release, and the classic WoW release did really well. So that would be a certain counter argument for graphics really aren't that important. But in general, one of the best returns is spending stupid amounts of money to upgrade your graphics. I'm sorry, but it's true. Like, we might not like that our fellow gamers are doing that. Our fellow gamers might be saying, no, 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 I don't care about graphics. But they do. They do when it comes to their revenue. Like when it comes to their actual spend, it's not their revenue. When it comes to their actually spending of money, and part of the reason for that is in the era of Steam, in the era of independent developers, there are hundreds and thousands of games that we just don't see, don't play, etc. And so you need to have the eye candy. You need something to catch them, either in your marketing material with your little video, in your, art that gets out there, preferably with brand name power. Like you it sucks, but the market forces do demand that. Is there room to do it without? Yes, and we've seen that in Classic, and yes, we've seen that from some things on Steam and like that have just been runaway successes with outdated ancient graphics, but remember how many of those things failed that probably had a similar level of that were probably similarly as good but failed as games on Steam because they simply didn't get found. They didn't go viral. Nintendo does things a little bit differently. Nintendo uses the same strategy that WoW originally used for their graphics, where, hey, we're making this a little more cartoony, and we're doing that A for a stylistic thing, B for a youth thing, and C for a. It sort of makes it harder to tell when your graphics are out of date when you go for that stylistic stuff. And that definitely has its benefits. You can see sometimes that in sprite work for RPGs too, where that really holds up well as games get older. Yeah, yeah, that's what they're marketing for. StarCraft 2 still has a following, and tons of people bought Warcraft Reforged, which got massive backlash from overpromising and under-delivering. Yep, absolutely deserved massive backlash. But we own those hundreds of games when they go on sale and bundled into something. Yeah. Okay, so there we go. I'm gonna get back to the article a little bit here because we've gone on a tangent, but that's okay. It was an interesting tangent, and it's a very related tangent. Okay, so they were talking about their Warcraft stuff, which was basically driving this, not Reforged, but Classic and Shadowlands. Um, Hearthstone appears to be doing well. Is it? I guess it's doing well in the collegiate scene. I didn't think people had been that much of a fan of Hearthstone. I was under the impression it had gotten too random for people, but I'm out of date on that. Um, okay, from Blizzard. So this is directly from Blizzard. This is on, what they put out themselves. Blizzard segment revenue grew 7% year over year, led by strong growth in Warcraft franchise. It's World of Warcraft Shadowlands expansion, building on the substantial increase in scale seen since the World of Warcraft Classic in 2019. Blizzard has 27 million MAUs in the first quarter. World of Warcraft Shadowland expansion continues to drive strong results following its record-setting release in November. Yeah, that did well, with first quarter franchise net bookings growing sharply year over year. Saw strong reach, engagement, and participation in value-added services, so microtransactions. So strong reach, lots of sales of the game itself. Engagement, lots of playtime, and lots of participation in microtransactions. Along with particularly high numbers of new players joining the community for the first time, you are repeating yourself when you say high number joining for the first time. What you really mean is your initial strong reach here. Um, Initiatives to enhance the onboarding experience. I wonder what that's talking about. Did they reduce level up time? Are they referring to like partner stuff where you buy a microtransaction to get your partner fast levels and get yourself fast levels? I wonder what they're talking about there. Hearthstone's latest expansion, launched on March 30th, is on track to deliver expansion over expansion net bookings growth for second consecutive release. Okay. How much? Like, is on track to deliver growth? 1% is growth. Huh. Ahead of its launch this year, Diablo 2 Resurrected, saw very positive feedback during early testing in April, and online viewership of the alpha test was the highest ever for a Blizzard game test. Well, yeah. The reason it's higher than ever is because people. Okay, I'm not being fair. I would like to say the reason it's higher than ever is people just saw what happened to Warcraft 3 Reforged, and they actually desperately want to play Diablo 2. Diablo 2 still holds on Twitch as like a top 30 game sometimes, which is crazy for how old that game is. People like Diablo 2. Diablo 2 is a fun game, and they're thrilled at the concept of that. Like, this should be free money for you guys. Just the problem is you've poisoned the well because Warcraft Reforged happened. You poisoned that well, and now there's going to be more doubt. But I'm happy to hear that people are watching it. I'm happy to hear that there was good viewership into the alpha. I want to know how much was available in the alpha though for people to see, because if it's anything like the Diablo 3 alphas and betas when they came out, you couldn't see enough of the game, and the stuff that wasn't clear during the testing, later level stuff, was massively broken, and they were hot fixing it on the fly, and they were doing this on the fly, etc., and it was a disaster. So I hope this is real testing and not just a marketing stunt. And I'm worried if you're telling me that the viewership was so high that it's just marketing. On mobile, Diablo Immortal entered its second phase of testing, is on track for release later this year. Okay, I'm going to be very curious how that does overseas. I don't expect that to do terribly well locally. April saw Overwatch fans around the world return to celebrate players and city-based teams in the opening. No, that didn't mean anything. Signed multi-year partnership with Bilibili Esports for exclusive rights to broadcast League games to platforms passionate and growing Overwatch League fan base in China. Yeah, I would love to know more about that, but I just don't know what source I can get to know more about that. Okay. Let me catch up here. I don't think we should ever complain about the graphics train, like better graphics means new technological possibilities. Sure, but it also is what's driving a lot of your development costs, and it's a lot of why games are so much more expensive to produce now, like disproportionately. There's other things that make the games more complicated to produce now, but disproportionately it's graphics. StarCraft Remastered was great. Blizz makes good games. A lot just lack replayability if you don't like the gameplay loop. Something there. Remember when they told us Overwatch has 10 million monthly active users? Um, Also, shouldn't their numbers have been inflated, not hurt by COVID? I agree, Karkar. I agree. It, this is one of those things where it's like when Amazon reports we grew massively during COVID, and I'm like, you did, but Walmart's online presence grew faster than yours, and Walmart's starting from a smaller place, but you actually gave up market scope. So you're not telling the whole story to your investors when you say we grew rapidly during this. Like, yes, that's true, but if you're losing market share, be a little careful in how you think about it. It's same thing, competition here that you got to be thinking about. Like, yes, you grew, but are other people growing more because you should be getting a bigger chunk of this pie. Okay. As noted last month, Blizzard continues to lose monthly active users across all of its titles. So it is all of its titles. It's now lost 11 million players in the last 3 years, or 29% as measured by Blizzard's own preferred monthly active user count. Okay, they lost 11% in the last 3 years. Continue to lose across all titles. So they were losing this last month, they're losing them this month. We don't know exactly what they did in the last month, in the last quarter. We do know it's 11 million across their titles. Yeah, that hurts. 2 million of those dried up just okay, so that we do know. 2 million dried up just since Q4 2020. Okay. So that would be just in the quarter that they're reporting on. They lost 2 million of the 11 million. How? How? So you should be looking at, really? So you've got 11 million and you're putting that over 3 years. What? Okay, let's do this. So usually you're losing, when we do that, usually you're losing 0.9 million, so 900,000, 0.9 M per quarter, and then this quarter you lost 2 million? Yikes. Like their average is they're losing 0.9 million a quarter for the last 3 years for this to work, but in this quarter, okay, that's how did you get your revenue? You got your revenue so high with layoffs. That is monstrous. Okay, yikes. Yikes. Okay, that's so people are bored of Blizzard's titles. Okay, so here we are. 2 million of those. Oh, and they're showing us. Oh, they're showing us their totals over time. Okay, I was working harder than I had to. So they lost the 2 million here. Yeah, we talked about that. They'd only lost 1 million here, but they lost 1 million in a quarter when they released a successful expansion. Really? They didn't go up? That's hard to believe. It's a little hard to believe. Okay. Oh, I guess it's not that hard to believe. It's an expansion. Still, my understanding is it got a fair amount of first time or returning from a long time ago, as in had skipped previous multiple expansion players. Okay. Oh, that's hard to see. Okay, so the Blitzchung disaster, which you would have expected to lose them some people, but not many. You wouldn't expect it to lose them like 40% of their player base or anything. People are always louder about complaining than they are about actually not playing, but that led into COVID, so COVID would have boosted their numbers a bit. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, let's keep going here. Addendum, we're always left to assume that the bulk of the bleed is coming from Blizzard titles other than WoW, given that WoW's revenue is up. That does not necessarily add up because the reality is microtransactions are a bigger portion of their monetization than subscriptions these days. Though we note that Activision Blizzard didn't actually say WoW subs were up. Uh, even or up even or since last quarter, which suggests they're down. Okay. We also note that PC Gamer has reported that Overwatch claims its increase in player base size by 10 million users in 2020, and in 2020 that would have been probably WoW Classic, bringing it up to 60 million total. Of course, there aren't monthly activities. Of course, those aren't monthly activities, and was during the pandemic. Still, it's unclear which games are suffering these persistent monthly active losses. Overwatch is part of it. That much we can tell you, which is exactly the obfuscation that Blizzard switch from was supposed to create. We know. Okay, so that covers it. So if you guys have more questions, we can throw them in here. I think I covered what I wanted to cover here, but you guys may spur me on to cover something else interesting. Um, hey, caught me live. Hey, Jason. Things are good. Things are good. Nardstorm thinks Overwatch has lost a good chunk of players in the time since BlizzCon Online. Yep. Lobbies are seeing a wider range of SR, more and more games. Yeah, they've also had people enter the space. Like this timeline doesn't show it, but more games have entered the space that Overwatch was meant to fill. Like this is what I talked about of competitive multiplayer games, competitive team multiplayer games are the current meta in development in doing that. And since Overwatch got released, when Overwatch was released, it was like the real competition. You had the old games that were in that world, but the modern games that were competing were going to be things like PUBG. Since then, okay, we've got Fortnite, we've got Apex. We've got more games released into those space that are more direct competition to them. So some of the Overwatch players leave to play these games. We've of course had Valorant, so that's not too surprising to see that they're losing people there. I doubt new consoles had too much to do with it, but maybe because the new consoles just don't come out with strong game libraries and people can't get their hands on them to play them anyways. But maybe. Um, Other than skins, minor cosmetics, there's almost no new content for Overwatch and terrible balancing decisions. Yeah, on the other hand, we've had a pretty good meta for a bit now. I'd say this year. So for most of this year, we've had a pretty good meta, and it's not like the last meta was terrible either. Yes, we had in the last meta a couple really overpowered heroes. Yes, McCree is overpowered right now, but like someone's always going to be a few heroes are always going to be more powerful than others because a couple reasons. A, it's hard to get this stuff right, but B, it's no secret that Blizzard likes flavor of the month balancing. Blizzard likes flavor of the month balancing because flavor of the month balancing gets people to potentially come back and check out your game when they hear that their hero, their WoW class, their whatever is in a good state. It gets them to come back, and then potentially they stay even after it's no longer the most powerful thing. They'll eventually leave again, but they'll come back and visit. So like it is a retention strategy to do flavor of the month balancing. It keeps your game a little more interesting for people who are more casual, more look at the shiny, and it gets people to revisit and then come back longer. Whereas the people that are the most hardcore, that play the hardest, that are the most serious, be it in WoW, be it in Overwatch, etc., are the most likely to stick with you through their hero being weak, through hey, your game getting worse, etc., because their opportunity cost, they've already invested the most time themselves. These people that are constantly leaving are the most tempting to try to get back. The people that are your most loyal fans, your most serious players, they've played Overwatch the whole time, etc., well, they've already proven that you can abuse them and ignore them, and they're not going to leave. And will they eventually leave? Yes. And you see the quitting Overwatch posts over Twitter. You do, but even though you do that, you lose them much more slowly because they are the most invested in the game and they have the more opportunity cost. They're doing the hey, I'm going to throw good time after bad, good money after bad, etc. That said, I think the last two major metas have been fine. Okay. Mm-hmm. 10 million free accounts ults. When did Valorant launch? 6/20/20. That's the start of their downward trend. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Valorant proved a particularly good out for a lot of the people in this category, and we saw that particularly with pros, where a lot of pros tried to jump ship, even successful ones. Um, Semitic agrees. The balance has been pretty all right lately. We had a Hog meta, a Genji meta, and now a Cream meta. Okay. Uh, Remember when Overwatch just didn't even get mentioned in the game intros at BlizzCon? Yeah. Is McCree really that overpowered, though? The answer to that question has to be no, because the McCree meta didn't show up until Echo, Tracer, Ball, Zen, um, Sigma, etc., all got nerfed. Like, until these guys who made up the previous meta all got nerfed. McCree got buffed to his current state in the middle of this meta, but then McCree didn't take over and have his brawl meta until these guys got nerfed. So, no. McCree can't be that overpowered because it's a case of, hey, he was in this state while these guys were in this state. So by definition, not by definition, there's the possibility that people just didn't find it because they were already playing this. But this is strong evidence that he's less overpowered than some things that we've had before. That said, he's still probably the most overpowered hero right now. Yeah, no, I agree. People like complaining because there's nothing else to complain about. When is Tracer 76 flavor of the month? Tracer 76? You want those two together, or you want Tracer played like Soldier 76? Content for Overwatch has been blah. Apparently something is coming. Some theorize a clan system. That wouldn't save it. People always ask for the wrong things. People asked for the clan system. People asked for the role queue. People like those. People don't always ask for the wrong things, but clan systems, in-game tournament hosting, those things are regularly asked for, and it's similar to MMOs. Where in MMOs, where they went on this thing like, we need guild housing, we need this, and they do them because they see other people doing them, and they ask for them because they see other games have them, but they're not massive draws. So like, you can do them because why not? But are there better places to spend your resources? Probably. Maybe I'm way off base with that. Maybe someone can show me numbers that say no. Clan systems have absolutely been proven in a recent game to be huge. They absolutely brought more people in, kept more people playing for longer. They made really interesting clan v clan stuff that is really engaging. I would love to hear more about that, but I haven't seen it. Um, it's opportune time to see him. It's been very much me. SK leaving is sad, very indicative. Maybe. I mean, we've had lots of people leave. Feels like competitive shooters from big studios have all been pretty meh lately. They're all chasing the same goal. They're all chasing the same thing. It's time, it's time for the next breakthrough. It's time for, like, again, in the past we had MMOs were the trend for a while. Our current trend is competitive team-based games like this that are always online. What's the next thing? It's time to see it. I'm at least ready to see it. Hmm. That said, I obviously very much enjoy Overwatch, and I'm not like, oh, I hate it or anything. No one should be taking that as the takeaway here. I'm just saying I am curious what the next direction for the next big thing in gaming is going to be genre-wise. Um, Widow 76 to be viable, that'll fix Overwatch? No, no. Uh, People ask for Bastion nerfs. That's how you know they don't really know what they want. Uh-huh. Bastion nerfs. You still see cries for Genji nerfs. I remember seeing it was a McCree nerf thread, and someone was like, McCree, blah, 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 but he checks Tracer and Genji. You can't nerf McCree until you nerf the people he checks, or they'll take back over. And I'm like, and you said the two people he checks is Tracer and Genji. And you can't nerf McCree until you nerf Genji further. What? What? uh, we need pets and mounts in Overwatch 2, and we need to be able to have our pets battle. We need to build a Pokemon battle system in Overwatch. Yeah, totally. That's the solution. Um, well, sort of Sonic the Otter. So, like, Overwatch 2 coming out will get fans back, but you get one shot. You get one shot with your Overwatch 2 release. You want to invest massively and test massively to make sure that you have found an amazing, and I mean amazing way for your PvP, for your Overwatch versus mode to be played, and you want that to be the patch, and it better be great because you get one chance to strike gold when Overwatch 2 releases to get everyone in here for the PvE that people will like. People will enjoy the PvE. But how long are they going to stick around for the PvE? I don't know. It looks like they've built a fair amount of replayability in there, but is a fair amount of replayability just code for you can grind forever to get stuff, and we're going to get too tempted, and we're going to put microtransactions in there to speed up the grind? I don't know. But you're going to get a chance when Overwatch 2 releases to funnel people back into your PvP, which in my mind is where the real longevity is, and it's where your leagues money is, because the league isn't going to help with your PvE, and the synergy between these two isn't very much, but this can lead back to here, and the synergy between these two is much more meaningful. Unless you build out some system where, like, you completely destroy the system that is Overwatch and go, no, now you need equipment for PvP, and you gather that equipment in PvE, and you build guilds to host PvP teams that go do this. Like, you could do something crazy like that, but that would be a completely different game and probably not what they're going to do. So, like, you get one shot. So you better make sure that you have an amazing meta and that you've done everything that you can to the ladder system to not make it as frustrating. Maybe that means not make it as team-based. Maybe that means give a little more individual carry potential to every role. And it looks like they're doing that with things like DPS can move faster, every support can self-heal, every tank has CC reduction. Like, they might be making it a more independent game, and that might be their way to do this. I think that's less interesting, but that might be correct from a standpoint of, hey, this is going to make it more popular. This is going to make it less frustrating because you're less tied to, well, I am playing tank and none of my DPS want to do anything about the pharmacy, and I'm very limited in what I can do about the pharmacy. Or, take your pick. Um, Okay. Okay. Uh, some kind of progression system besides golden guns would be nice. Could be. Could be. I think you're going to see a lot of that in PvE. I don't know if it'll make sense in PvP. Um, unless you want to go with, like, titles. Like, I guess you could go WoW style with, like, Warlord, Supreme Warlord, Commander, whatever PvP titles. Um, In regards to clans, what made looking for group disappear so early was people thought it would be a magic solution to climbing. The magic, oh yeah, got it. Six plats will struggle to prime as much as a single plat. It's actually worse than that because there are teams, especially in, say, plat, that will queue up that are scrim teams, and they just go, it's easier for us to queue than find scrims. We can queue whenever we see each other on, as opposed to having to schedule scrims, so they use it to fill out around their scrim time. And if you run into a scrim team as just a looking for group team, they're going to crush you, even though you have the same SR. So, like, that was bound to not be fun. Like, that was always bound to not be fun and be poorly done. I really think the solution, it's way too late to do this now, but the solution, even though it would have been a completely different game, was to just not let you solo queue. No. This is a team queuing game, and everyone is team queuing. And if everyone is team queuing, it's not just going to be super teams that you're going to run into there, because you can't queue without having people. So then you could have a clan system where this is our clan of 20 people, and we roughly trust everyone in the clan to be someone that we're willing to play with in a group of 6. So if we have 7 or 8 people on, we can get a group of 6 going. That could have made a clan system work. But again, that only matters if you have this, and now we're too late in the game's development. I don't think a clan system works because the precedent is already set of you only queue if you have a team that is practiced as their 6, not a clan that is subscribed to this is the way to play the game, and we all accept that we're in roughly a high enough, similar enough skill tier that we want to do this, and we somewhat consistently play together. But like, no, it's just these six, or maybe just these eight. Um, yeah, and Umbranox is against the progression system. Genji is OP. He has the voice line, Mata Mata ne. Yep. Temp, someone once on the forums told me that Anna's nade was stronger than old Halt. Understandable. Like, I don't think that's necessarily wild. Let me think for a second. I don't think that's like the hottest take ever. I mean, Anna's nade was the beginning. Anna was the beginning of power creep in Overwatch. Like, when you looked at what Anna was, she came out with a nade that did four distinct things. It does damage, it heals, it amps heals, and it purples. Like, that is a really powerful ability. Now, people undervalued Halt for ages. People undervalued Halt for ages. And I remember when I saw, I forget who it was, but in London, Gestures Orisa was like so much better than everyone's Orisa when the first Owl season happened, stage 4, I think it was, or maybe it was just the playoff meta, where it was a poke meta, and he hopped on, and it was clear that he was the only one in the league who really understood how to get value out of Halt. And since then, people slowly started learning, slowly started getting better at it, etc. Like, Halt is a really good ability. But, like, I don't think it's an absolutely wild take to go, hey, that old Halt, look how good this nade is. Like, this nade is pretty good. Halt probably does more to enable your team. It really becomes a center for your target calling. It really becomes a very easy and reliable cooldown um, to synchronize aggressive pressure around. So I'd probably put it as better than the nade. It can be shut down by a lot of the same things that a nade. What shuts down a Halt mostly also shuts down this, but the Halt is a bit more dangerous in its ability to pull people from behind walls much more aggressively than the nade splashes behind walls. So I'd give it to the Halt, sure. Hmm. Um. Make it like Paladins where you can ride with your pets bounce to mid fight. You don't want it to come out as a flop. Yep. Yep, Sonic, exactly. World of Overwatch. Oh no. Oh no. ah! Yes, Blob, but can I give you $5 to accelerate the process and level my tracer faster? Why doesn't Overwatch have an economy or equipment like LoL? Because it was kind of inspired by different games. It was sort of inspired by different games is really the answer to that. It could have done that, but they already had Hearthstone for that. They already have Hearthstone for that niche, and Hearthstone, not Hearthstone. Heroes of the Storm, excuse me, for that niche. And Heroes of the Storm did okay, but not amazing. Heroes of the Storm has had most of its support pulled, if memory serves. Got pulled out of the collegiate scene by and large. Yeah, so they tried that already. uh, One trick say it's Tank's job to swap in one man counter pharmacy. Yeah, I shouldn't have said pharmacy. I probably should have said Echo Mercy. That would have been a better example of something that tanks struggle to counter. It doesn't really matter to me. Um, uh, because yes, fair Diva is a pretty good counter to pharmacy, but only if your team can actually take advantage of the window that you give them. But once again, it's still team based. Diva's an excellent counter to pharmacy, but she's going to buy you seconds of time, and your team has to aggress during those seconds of time. And if they don't, it's just going to feel really bad. Again, the game is very team based to a degree that's frustrating for a lot of players. Um, no economy. Don't want to make the game of investment. Would rather keep it strategy based. They need a robust tutorial system for Overwatch 2. I doubt it. Show people how to play Overwatch, not just how to control Soldier 76. This game is too hard to just throw at people. The problem is, Nard, I don't think they knew. And I think what you would have included in a tutorial in year one is, excuse me, on day one is very different than what you'd have included 6 months in, is very different than what you'd include 4 months in. So how frequently are you going to upgrade the tutorial? And are you going to let people, when they log in after a patch that updated the tutorial, play the game because they already completed version 1 of the tutorial and they're grandfathered in? Or do they have to go through a new tutorial? Because I can guarantee you, I know how humans work, and if they've completed an old version of the tutorial, they're not going to necessarily go check out the new version of the tutorial, or if they have to, they're just going to super skip their way through it because they want to get back to playing with their friends. That's a tough one. Everyone thought Halt would be the most busted thing ever before it released. It actually took like 6 months, 6+ months for people to actually use Orisa. Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful. Halt, Dynamite, Bionade. It's powerful. Wish they didn't nerf Halt. Okay. I can't read that. Someone will think it's serious, and my video will get demonetized. Probably not, but why take a chance? Six stack Q would be interesting. I think a six stack Q would have been amazing, but I think it's too late. Tutorial. This is Winston. Till recently, he was a total throw pick because literally everyone could eliminate you in less time than you could complete a leap. Yeah, yeah. Countering Pharmacy plus Echo and Gold Plat is like trying to beat a combined 3-card Blue Eyes White Dragon. Okay. 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 I think that's gonna do it. If you guys have more questions, throw them up in chat now. If you guys are enjoying the content, please do like and subscribe, as that helps me out quite a bit. And if you like it when I go find this other type of content to comment on, hey, what's going on with patch notes? Hey, what's going on with investor earnings report? Hey, what's going on with maybe a different Blizzard game that got released, or maybe a competitive game, something like that. If you like that type of content, do let me know. You can let me know in the Discord, in the comments. You can also like it when I do stuff like that. That's helpful feedback. Or you can dislike it. That's useful feedback too. Yeah, yeah. So don't buy Activision stock. I probably wouldn't. I'm not giving you investing advice, but I'm not personally invested in them in any way outside of index funds. I personally wouldn't pick them individually, but that's not me saying anything to you, just because I gotta be careful. With that aside, do your own research, make your own decisions. No, I would not recommend buying them. You think this will make them release another hero? No. No, I do not. I don't think they have enough. Like, I think we're going to discover when they release the game, like, aha, we've released the game. And we're going to be like, wait, you released the game with, 8 new heroes or something like that. And if we do the math, if we should have gotten a new hero every 3 months, that's not even as many heroes as we would have gotten if you just kept on your release cycle. I think that's what's going to happen. If it's a big enough number, people won't care. Like, if it's like, here's 12 new heroes, and we should have had 14 new heroes or something like that by the time it gets released, or we should have had 20 new heroes, but hey, it's 12 new heroes, and that's still a lot of new heroes, blah, 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 people won't care. But if they go, hey, we released the game, and here's 6 new heroes, here's 8 new heroes, and we do the math and we say, wait, we should have had 20, we should have had 24, we should have had 18, like that, this isn't going to work well. And my concern is, I don't think they're making new heroes. I think they are making some new heroes, but I think what we'd find is if they released a couple heroes early to us, I'm very concerned that when the game then came out, we would have like 6 new heroes, and that would be terrible for them. Because, 6 new heroes plus these 2, but we wouldn't give them these 2. Whereas we will give them these 2 if they go like this, and even if they've given us 0 for years, which, yeah, Human psychology. uh, no, buy the dip. Well, buy the dip is good advice, Nard, but you have to believe that this company is buying the dip is generally good advice, but you have to believe that this company in the long run is a better investment of your money, is going to make money faster than somewhere else. Buying the dip is correct. It's good. The thing is this a dip or is this they're never coming back? And what I mean by that is like also this isn't a dip. They just saw increases as we saw. Even though they lost more players this quarter than they usually do, their revenue went up in a way. So I expect their stock prices are up. What you're looking at is words. Um, Now, I'm not saying their stock price is never going to go up again. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying, hey, it's here. Is this a good vehicle to make your money go up as fast as it would have been in the past or as fast as other companies could be? And if you guys want, I could dive into, not in this video, in a different video, I could do its own video on, hey, what does look good as a developer that you could potentially invest in? What developers do look like they're available, either that are publicly traded or are not publicly traded but exist, that could be the places that could see growth, etc. And you could go, hey, who is the next generation of Blizzard, the person who might grow to this side, and who is the next company that's going to be bought out, like a Blizzard or a BioWare, that were good companies that made good games, etc. Because those would be places where if you could find a way to invest, you'd be interested. Or you could just go, hey, I would like to play good games from companies that used to make good games like these, etc. And it's clearly, and maybe it's not these guys anymore, so who are the next generations? Because you can't look to the Squaresofts of the world to expect Final Fantasies to be amazing anymore. That's not how it works outside of their MMO. Okay, thanks for the insights. So yeah, my point was on the dip. Like, okay, even if you saw a dip, which I don't think this one is, you have to go. Does it make sense to invest in? Does it make sense to invest in Activision over investing in EA? And the answer to that might be yes, but does it make sense to do that over investing in Nintendo? Which I'm not convinced that you can, but you get where I'm going with this. They're not even close to fixing Paris Horizon Lunar Colony. They're not, I doubt they're ready for new heroes. Fair point. Fair point. Uh, Unlucky. Yeah. Okay. I'll get endorsements in the next map. Is there a temporal financial consulting services? Not licensed, but that is the type of thing that I can throw lots of disclaimers at if you want to do an Ask Temporal for. Yeah, that's when I put Ask Temporal in the Discord originally. That was one of the things that I expect and still expect once it starts getting some popularity, will continue to get popularity as not a 100% like, oh, this is, certified financial advisor, not that, but as a, okay, these generally are good ways to go. These generally are bad ways to go. Unfortunately, in most of the Western world, people do not correctly learn how money works. And let me help explain how money actually works in the Western world, how you actually use it, etc. Um, yeah, that's true, Augie. They might. The prices might go up. On the other hand, they might go down when Diablo 2 Resurrected comes out. And if you wanted to buy a dip, you could be trying to go, okay, let me try to get a really good read on whether Diablo Resurrected, it's certainly got hype behind it, but is it going to be a reforged situation? Because if it's a reforged situation, you would potentially short them, or you would go, hey, I'm going to buy the dip after that when they take the hit for that, even though it won't be a huge one. Or you could go, no, I think it's real, in which case I think they're going to get a little bump for it, so you could buy before. But that's going to be based on what do you think is the case here. And don't ask me to tell you that, because if I knew the answer to that, guess what? I have my guesses, but if you're actually asking me for investing advice like to that level, no, I'm not actually gonna dig through every single bit of information that's available for that one. Um, okay. Uh, you want to see that video? temporal? Or excuse me, you want to see that video, Nordstrom? Which video? Sorry, because I'm catching up on chat now, so you're gonna have to tell me which video. Um, yes, can that be your next video? Shoot, what did I even say? Oh, you want to see the video about who the next people are? Yeah, okay. That'll probably take me some work to put together, but I'll put that together, sure. Been meaning to check out Final Fantasy MMO. Yeah, that one was good. People like that one. Um, well, that's all the encouragement I need. Is Temporal going to get licensed for temporal consulting services? Still not, because you'll notice even people that do that, even people that do get licensed, still have to be very careful in what they offer on air. And I would be offering this on air, so there's not really a benefit to doing it that way, to getting licensed. I just have to be very careful in how I say it, what I do, etc., and then I can still give the advice. Fair enough, guys. Fair enough. Okay, so I've got lots of votes to go do the find the developers that are either making good games that are smaller, or and are potentially investable into, or are hey making good games and you should be paying attention to what they're doing, even if they're currently not something you can directly invest into. What browser is this? This is Brave browser. I'm using Brave browser. Brave browser should pay me money to endorse them, but Brave browser is a browser that is built on basically Chrome's similar system. It's built very similar to Chrome. In fact, some people will, some places, websites you go to will recognize you as using Chrome when you're running it, but it is much, much better about what do I say? It is much, much better about about privacy. It is like way better about privacy. It's not doing that, and then you can even enable your default search to be DuckDuckGo, so much better about privacy, and much better about instantly deleting ads, shutting down ads, will by default have your ad blockers enabled, all that good stuff. SEC ruins everything. If Brave isn't sponsoring you, then roast it. I mean, I think they're doing a pretty good job. They've got issues. They do have some issues, like they're sometimes get beat. There's the constant war between ads that it can't shut down and it shutting down ads. It does a pretty good job of staying on top of that. It doesn't always win, but it does a pretty good job. But it's a pretty good browser. Um, right. Chromium is the HTML renderer underneath. Exactly. Uh, Brave is ever so slightly less garbage than other browsers. That's about right. That's about right. Maybe not ever so slightly. It is less garbage than other browsers. I'd say it's fine even. Like it does what I want my browser to do. It's obviously I'm using it. It's what I think is the best choice on the market right now. I just want them to sponsor Temporal. There you go. Okay, and you can use whatever you want to stop ads there, Jason, and that's cool, but are you comfortable with Chrome getting, I mean, even if you're stopping the ads, Google is still getting your marketing information to go profit off of, to go sell to people, and that's okay in some ways. They're giving you a good service, but if that same service exists in a way where you don't have to give up something that has value that they get profit off of, why I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna go do that. Like, Google built themselves a good browser. Don't get me wrong, they built themselves a good search engine. But now the DuckDuckGo is not massively behind Google anymore. DuckDuckGo is just about as good in terms of its search results, and Brave does what effectively Chrome does. We're pretty much to a place where it's like, why am I giving you this thing of value for free when I don't have to? I'm sending this VOD to the Brave devs. Okay, cool. I think they're doing, a better job than the competition, so I don't have an issue with that. Oh, you use Fire. Okay, that's fine. Google does already own all of our souls, but hey. Oh boy. Oh boy. Nard. Do you have your CD that you got from the video store, the video rental store for that one, Nordstrom, for your AOL? Okay. Plus, Chrome does give you biased search results. That is very true. That is very true. It's probably not even fair of me to say that DuckDuckGo's search is almost as good as Chrome, because I think there are still places where you get better results by using Chrome or by using Google than by using DuckDuckGo. But the problem is, if you get to controversial stuff, yes, Chrome does shut out results, and that probably does overall actually make this better. I do still hop back to Google for some searches on things, like when you're doing stock research, etc. I find that they have the deal with these sites to actually show how they're doing. To have the trackers up there for the stocks is better than what you get on Chrome, on Brave. But yes, you do have to accept that if you're using Google searches, you are missing out on some stuff that perhaps doesn't fit accepted narratives. Okay. It's a temporal AMA now? Yeah, these frequently turn into that. These frequently turn into that. Okay. I uh, I know, Blast. I know. Remember when Chrome was lightweight and efficient? I do. We're not there anymore. Uh, okay. That's going to do it for now. I'm going to take a break, but I'll obviously have more stuff up later. Thanks, guys. Temporal out.